So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vikki. I am recovering chaos creator, codependent, controller fixer. Um, I'm gonna, I'm a little bit all over the place, but I feel like it'll come together. It'll make a little bit of sense, or you can just take something away that speaks to you. If it doesn't make sense in its entirety, you'll just take a piece that will resonate with you. And that's actually how I enter pretty much any environment that I go into. I decided early on in my recovery journey that I wanted to learn and I wanted to grow, and that I could learn and grow from anywhere, anyone, anything, any opportunity. And so when I walk into an environment, everything might not be for me, but something is going to be for me. And so, and that's been just proven to be true. I can come out of any environment and really, there's something that stands out as wisdom for me and is helpful for me. And so, another goal actually that John and I early on kind of adopted when we went into learning environments is not to allow ourselves to become overwhelmed by everything. Sometimes you can come into an environment and there's just so much coming at you. And it's really important not to feel defeated out of that, but is there just one thing that I can take away that I can implement? So I want to start off, because, myself and Joanne, we're doing the work a certain way from a certain perspective. And then other people are doing, they're exploring another issue or another experience. And so, when John shares, he talks about alcoholism and addiction, and I can relate to what he's saying. I can actually pull that into my circumstances. I can pull from what he talks about into my circumstances, but I think it can be helpful to understand the problem. And so I just want to share with you a little bit of what my problem is. And so what controlling, fixing, chaos creating, codependency, when that's the description, when that's what we're talking about, what that means for me is that, for so much of my life, I thought the problem was the people around me, in particular, one specific person who caused a lot of problems in my life for a really long time. And if that person would just get sober and do the right thing and be the husband and the father and the man that, he said he wanted to be, then my life would be just fine and everything would be solved. And the reality is actually that there was something deep inside of me that was not okay. There was this unrest. There was this deep underlying anxiety and feeling of irritation and discontent and inability to have peace inside, regardless of what was going on around me. And a couple of years ago, I came to an understanding that I am addicted to adrenaline and that I'm addicted to chaos creating, and that I needed something to kind of focus on that would produce this effect that I was looking for. And so often, so it was important for me to start looking at okay, so what are some of those things that I'm doing that are actually producing this effect? An alcoholic can say, well, yep, I take that first drink. And, what happens after the first drink? Well, everything's off the table, right? After the first drink comes the second drink. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but after the first drink, something kicks in. I have this allergy, and now I'm off and running. A porn addict, I've heard a lovely friend of mine share about her porn addiction and how just so early on she was exposed to pornography and it got it took hold in her. And, the way that she lived her life as a very young person, abandoning everything to look at pornography, to be, this was not a choice that she made. It's this something inside of her. There was just something that she just could not stop, and it was never enough. And it's she just never knew and could not get a hold of it, could not. And so that can be true for food. That can be true of all sorts of things that we initially just start using to kind of self-soothe, feel safe, feel seen, soothe that ease and comfort. And then the next thing we know, we no longer have control over this. This is something that now has control over us. With a codependent, it gets a little tricky because the world around us is the problem. You're the problem. If only you would just. And so that just gets so tricky. And so it's important for me to look at some of the characteristics of the things that I'm doing that are wrapped up in that, which for ease, I just call it a disease. And so for me, being chronically late or regularly late is part of that. Overspending produces that adrenaline and that anxiety. Neglecting responsibilities or relationships, ignoring physical problems, hoping that they'll go away or fix themselves, fixing other people, doing for other people what they, could do for themselves, manipulating other people to get what I want, wallowing in self-pity, being a martyr, taking things personally, being critical of others, feeling that I'm the right person to teach someone a lesson or to educate them, hypervigilance and talking too much but not speaking my truth, being in my head all the time. I get into this vortex, lying by omission, leaving things out, avoiding confrontation. So chemically or hormonally, I'm not going to go into this today, but there's just some of us that get this surge of adrenaline pumping through our bodies when we engage in these behaviors, and we get addicted to that feeling. And for me, I can see how that started happening when I was very young. That, I can identify times now where I'm like, oh, wow, that obsession, that adrenaline, that, I can see those moments. I'll give you an example. We were at a junior high seminar thing. What did they used to do in high school? They would sit everybody down in the gym and talk to you about something. And what they were talking about from the front was part of it was eating disorders. And this girl wanted, I initially thought of this as attention seeking. Initially I thought, oh, as a young person, I was very attention seeking. But now what I start to see is the adrenaline that would course through my body. So now I saw this opportunity of this thing came up in me, and now I'm forming a lie, but then I also formed a behavior around the lie. And now there was so to the point where I actually began engaging in an activity, and it was so visible to teachers around me. They started talking to me and engaging with me. And what I realized is initially I thought, oh, I had an eating disorder. It happens often with young women. But what I didn't realize is, oh, I actually started that with a lie. The day of that seminar, I decided for what reason? There's no explanation for that, except that this adrenaline started coursing through my body and I have zero control over it. And then I just don't know where I'm going to go next. I don't know. And I have told so many lies in my young life that made zero sense to me. And now when I look back, they cause so much shame and embarrassment. And there's just, until I started doing this, until I really started looking at what was going on with me, I didn't understand. So now I've spent 10 minutes talking about something that was entirely not in my notes. It was one line in my notes, and I have 10 minutes left. So, it was a line of let's talk about the 3-part disease: mental, physical, and spiritual. And so for me, that's what the physical and mental part look like. The physical and mental part make zero sense. It just makes no sense what's happening, and I can't control it. I don't know when the next time will happen where my mind just goes, and against my will, I'm doing these crazy things that I never wanted to engage in again, and I have zero control over it. The spiritual part of it is for me, it's the solution, but it's the sickness. It's the sickness that I literally drift away from so quickly. And the closest example that I can think of is currently my office. I tried to stage it so that like you don't see the clutter, but like John came in this morning and said, "Your office is so junky looking. I can clean my office and it will look fantastic." And I'll do that. Give it 1 week and it looks junky again. Why? Because I haven't paid attention, because I'm not intentional to put things away, or I'm not staying on top of the paperwork or whatever it is. And that is my relationship with God. I have every intention of having this relationship with God where He's my answer, He's my solution. I'm not striving. I'm not trying to do this of my own will, but it's, Him. But then the next thing you know, it's like, what just happened? We took possession of a new space on February 1st, and I literally did not work out like all of February. These things that I was doing because I know I need to do them to maintain health and wellness and emotional and physical and spiritual well-being, they just fall right off the table. We get the keys, and then I get the flu. And now it's been 3 weeks where everything that's good for me goes on the back burner. How does that happen? Why does that happen? And I think I remember when I was going through one of the ways of doing this work. LifeLab is one way. But I had someone different take me through a process called Big Book Awakening, which is an AA-based 12-step process. And I had this woman take me through, and she's a chaos creator. And she told this story of how there's a chicken and a pig, and they're walking by and they see this like sign, and the sign says like, "Come feed the poor." And the chicken looks at the pig and is like, "Hey, like we could go help feed the poor." And the pig is like, "Oh, what are you thinking?" And he's like, "Well, we have like ham and eggs. Let's give them ham and eggs." And the pig is like, that's easy for you to say, but that's like a big thing for me. Like, you're making a little decision to feed these people eggs, but like I'm making a big decision. And that's the reality of my life. God is asking me to make a big decision. Am I willing to give eggs, or am I willing to give my life because He's promised me a new life? Am I willing to do whatever it takes to get out of the insanity that has been my life over and over and over and over? Like I have proven for 40 some years that I do not, of my own volition, make good decisions. That left to my own devices, my office looks junky in less than a week. My internal condition is junky in less than a week. If I do not take action on a daily basis, it takes no time at all for me to get back to the place where I started, for me to completely even forget why I started and think, "Oh, yeah, I got this." And she always told this other little story too, of 3 frogs sitting on a log, and they decide to jump in the water. How many frogs are left on the log? 3. They didn't actually do anything. They just made a decision to jump in the water. They're all still sitting on a log. So, which really, I was like, yeah, I make a decision all the time that I'm going to do better, that I'm going to work harder, that I'm going to, all these things. I make these elaborate plans and schemes, but of my own power, I don't have the ability to follow through. So for me, the ability that I have is to make that decision every day that I'm willing to give up my life for a new life. The life that I had is not the life that I want. And so every day I need to make that decision. Sometimes I remember to make the decision the night before I go to sleep. And sometimes I make the decision when I wake up in the morning, when I grumbling open my eyes. or yell at my Google alarm to stop. But sometimes I have to make the decision at 10 a.m. when I realize, oh, wow, things are going sideways. And then sometimes I make the decision 3 weeks later, oh, right, God, I actually want you to be first. I actually want you to be first, and I want you to be everything. I don't want to just give up eggs. I want to be willing to give up my life for a new life. And the miracles happen, through like taking action and actually jumping into the water and doing the work. And that's where the miracles start to happen. And I've seen that, I have seen the miracles. So how do I turn over my will in my life? And it really comes down to doing things that are against my will and against my life. Sounds really fun. It's really challenging. It is really challenging, but the reality is that for so long I lived a certain way, and I'm being asked to live a different way. I'm being asked to live with God first as opposed to me first. And for me, sitting in silence, which was going to be, stillness and silence was really what I thought I was going to talk about. Apparently, it's just going to be a byline in my talk. But it really was the catalyst. It was an action that I needed to take. I really was being asked to take that action of being willing to sit in silence. It was so hard for me. It's still so hard for me. But it was definitely against my will. It was definitely against how I typically lived my life. And it was something that I definitely needed to do in order to turn. The static in my head has ruled my entire life. There's just so much static. There's so much noise. There's so much helplessness, hopelessness. The critics, they're so loud in my head. And the only solution is to learn how to practice silence and stillness for me. And so, the reality is that I have come to a place, I come to this room, I come to a program like LifeLab, I go to, I come to any place of going to any 12-step help group. That is a place that I'm going to because I don't want to be the one to fix my own problems anymore. I suck at fixing my own problems. I make terrible decisions. And I can't come into these rooms looking to you to fix my problems. You're all here for the same reason. So that would actually be counterintuitive. And what we have is a spiritual solution. We have access to God, who is going to change our life, and it really does become more and more clear as I spend the time, as I keep coming back. One meeting a week, that's initially how I started, didn't do it, and then it was like, oh, a meeting a week and listening to recordings. It was like just the active seeking, I think, is really what God was like, yeah, you just keep seeking. I once heard someone say, every baby comes into this world looking for someone who is looking for them. If you've ever seen a child born, which I have had the joy of witnessing the birth of a child, not the time I was giving birth, but someone else was giving birth and I just got to witness, because that's a whole different experience. That is actually what the child does. Like the baby, this tiny little infant, it takes like a matter of seconds before this infant is looking and crying and looking for, for us. What makes us think that we're any different from that initial first moment? We have these core needs to be seen, to be soothed, to be safe, and to be secure. And the only one who can be all of that for us is God. He wants to fill all of that for us. And every other reason that we're in this room is a false answer for those needs. My choice every morning is to allow God to be that for me. And so as we come to the end of LifeLab in session 17, we have this process where we call it a take up your cross daily checklist. And then so in Luke 9 verse 23, Jesus said to them, his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me." So we encounter this place, and this isn't just for like us in 12-step up, us in addiction, who've realized addiction. This is like for every person who is living a Christian life. Any person who says like, "Oh, I want to be a Christian. I want to follow Jesus. I want God in my life." And this is what God says to them. "Oh, okay. Be a disciple. Deny yourself. Pick up your cross and follow me every day." I'm like, okay, daily. That word daily is like right there. So for us, we come to realize, and the big book gives us this really, really practical, they have pages 84 to 86 or 88. There's these big practical pages that say, hey, when you wake up in the morning, here's some things you should be looking at. Take a look at this. Where have you been self-centered? Where have you been dishonest? Where have you been in fear? Where have you, and at night, or sorry, that's the nighttime, the nightly review. Every night, look at this. And every morning, look at your day. Who's in charge of your schedule? Are you in charge of your schedule? Did you ask God what he would have for you today? Is there things that you need to clear out? Do you face indecision? Is there, insecurity somewhere that you need to look at? Every day. And so this is a vigorous process, it says. Vigorous. This isn't an afterthought, which I often, shuffle this to like the back of my afterthought. And so in the back of the LifeLab book, we have this like really good checklist for conscious contact. What does conscious contact mean? Well, here's some questions to ask myself. Did I start my day with conscious contact with God? Did I start my day with please? Did I start my day asking for wisdom and guidance? Did I try to be pleasant with everyone today? Did I go out of my way to be kind or do a good deed for someone? Did I demonstrate gratitude in my life? Did I reject resentment? Did I resist the PLOMs, the poor little old me syndrome? Did I indulge in whatever the favorite character defect might be? Did I resist the temptation to gossip or criticize? Did I have a spiritual contact today with someone? Did I renew at any time during my day my conscious contact with God? Did I take a little pause? Did I take a little break? Did I have a quiet time? Sometimes I need a reset in the middle of the day. Did I close my day with thanks? Where did I serve, give, or pray for others today? Because this is a process of growth. And so that list kind of like reminds me like, oh, right, this is how I stay on the right path. This is how I stay out of my selfishness. This is how I stay out of fear. Because if it relies on me to like keep me out of fear, I'm going to fail. I will fail every single time. If it like relies on me to keep my office clean, it's going to look junky in less than a week. That's my internal condition. And so I love tangible, practical. And so that list at the back of, as we get to the last lesson in LifeLab, which, we just finished taking a group through LifeLab. So that's why it was so fresh for me. And I was just reminded like, that I didn't have that exact checklist, but when I put my stake in the ground and stomped my feet and said, I am done living in insanity. I'm done. I went to someone else and said, like, what do I need to do? I don't want to be crazy anymore. What do I need to do? And she said, okay, you're going to do this and this and this. She's like, call me once a day or message me once a day, meditate once a day, and then read these pages every day. She gave me 3 things to do. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do those things. And so that's what I love about this little list is it's like this tangible, practical, these are the things that are going to keep me on track. These are the things that are going to keep God at the center and Vikki out of the way, because she does not do a good job on her own, So that is my encouragement to you.